Hey guys, so I'll be reading Think and Grow Rich, Chapter 1. You can listen to this and help me grow. Please donate. Yeah. So, you are now engaged in the task of trying to profit by nature's method. As far as science has been able to determine, the entire universe consists of matter and energy. The combination of energy and matter has created everything perceptible from largest star that floats in the heavens down to the tiniest grain of sand. You are now engaged in the task of trying to profit by nature's method. You are sincerely and earnestly, we hope, trying to adapt yourself into nature's laws by endeavoring to convert desire into its physical and monetary equivalent. You can do it. It has been done before. You can build a fortune through the aid of laws that are immutable. Immutable means unchanged. Mutate means changing, and immutable means unchanged. You can build a fortune through the aid of laws that are immutable. But first, you must become familiar with these laws and learn to use them. Through repetition and by approaching the description of these principles from every conceivable angle, the author hopes to reveal you the secret through which great fortunes have been accumulated. Strange and paradoxical as it may seem, the secret is not a secret. Secret is not a secret. Nature herself advertises it on earth on which we live. The stars, the planets suspended within our views, in the elements above and around us, in every blade of grass and in every form of life. Within our vision, nature advertises this secret in the terms of biology and the conversation of a tiny cell, so small that it may be lost on the point of a pin into the human being now reading this line. The conversion of desire into its physical equivalent is certainly no more miraculous. Do not become discouraged if you do not fully comprehend all that has been stated. Unless nature advertises this secret in the terms of biology in the conversion of a tiny cell so small that it may be lost on the point of a pin into the human being now reading this line. The conversion of desire into its physical equivalent is certainly no more miraculous. Do not become discouraged if you do not fully comprehend that all that has been said. ठीक है, unless you have long been a student of the mind, it is not to be expected that you will assimilate. Assimilate means learn and understand all that in this chapter upon a first reading, but you will in time make good progress. The principle that follow will open the way for understanding of imagination. Assimilate that which you understand as you read this philosophy for the first time. Then when you reread and study it, you will discover that something has happened to clarify it and give you a broader understanding of the whole. Above all, do not stop or nor hesitate in your study of these principles until you have read the book at least 3 times, for then you will not want to stop. You are the master of your fate. Fate means bhagya, your destiny, the captain of your soul. Master of your fate, captain of your soul. When the English poet W.C. Henley wrote the prophetic lines, I am the master of my fate and I am the captain of my soul, he should have informed us that of the reason we are the masters of our fate, the captains of our soul, that we have the power to control our thought and that our thoughts shape our reality. Here is how thought shapes reality. The ether means liquid. The ether in which this little earth floats in which we move and have our being is a form of energy moving at an inconceivably high rate of vibration. This ether is filled, mm, unimaginable vibration. This ether is filled with a form of universal power which adapts itself to the nature of the thought we hold in our minds and influences us in natural ways to transmute our thoughts into physical equivalent. This power makes no attempt to discriminate between destructive thoughts and constructive thoughts. It will translate into physical reality thoughts of poverty just as quickly as it will translate your into physical reality thoughts of riches. Our brains become magnetized with the dominating thoughts which we hold in our minds, and by means with which no person is familiar, these magnets attract to us the forces, the people, the circumstances of life which harmonize with the nature of our dominating thoughts. Before we can accumulate riches in great abundance, we must magnetize our minds with intense desire for riches. We must become money conscious until the desire for money becomes a sufficient force to transmute desire into wealth. You truly are the master of your fate, the captain of your soul. This natural and enduring truth is the root of the principle described in the book, the principle that unlock the secret of gaining mastery over your financial fate. We must become money conscious until the desire for the money becomes a sufficient force to transmute desire into wealth. Develop success consciousness. The Great Depression started in 1929 and continued on to an all time record of destruction until sometime after President Franklin D. Roosevelt entered the office. Just as an electrician in a theater raises the light so gradual that darkness is transmuted into light, before you realize it, so did the spell of fear in the minds of the people gradually fade away as faith filled in darkness. Through the power of thought, what seemed impossible became possible. The Great Depression and continued on to the all-time record high of destruction until sometime after President entered office. Just as an election of theatre lands so gradually darkness was transformed into light, before you realize it, so did the spell of fear in the minds of people gradually fade away as faith filled in darkness. हाँ भाई, क्योंकि आके गए बंदे देख के, अब भाई ऐसे कैसे नहीं रुकेंगे, बिल्कुल रुकेंगे. Through the power of thought, what seemed impossible became possible. Some who will read this book will believe that no one can think and grow rich. Will believe that no one can think and grow rich. They can't think in terms of riches. Thought, what seemed impossible became possible. Their thought habits have been steeped in poverty, want, misery, failure, and defeat. To think and grow rich, the first step is to adopt the proper mindset, become success conscious. Success comes to those who become success conscious. Failure comes to those who indifferently allow themselves to become failure conscious without interest. Indifferently. अरे indifferent का भी तो मतलब कुछ होगा. Indifferent means different का क्या मतलब है? Indifferent means कौन का मतलब? हाँ, without interest. ये तरीका है. तेरे प्यार मैनू मेरे यार मोड़ दो ऐसी समा कट ले पे चले चार मोड़ दो. Why the F is this unexpected, bro? Akashvani FM, bro. I'm going on a break, okay? Become success conscious. Success comes to those who become success conscious. Failure comes to those who indifferently allow. Indifferently means without interest. Allow themselves to become failure conscious. Stop thinking in terms of impossible and cannot. People readily point out proposed solution that will not work and can't be done. Purge these and other self-defeating words from your vocabulary. Measure opportunities by what it is possible, not by your own impressions and beliefs. People tend to develop a habit of measuring everything and everyone by their own self limiting impressions and beliefs. Don't let preconceptions hold you or other back from achieving what is possible. The object of this book is to help all who seek it learn the art of changing their minds from failure consciousness to success consciousness. Stories that illustrate the power of thought. The stories that follow demonstrate how intangible thought combined with purpose, persistence, and a burning desire translates into the acquisition of tangible wealth, and how the power of control one's thought shapes one's reality. The man who thought his way into partnership with Thomas A. Edison. Edwin C. Barnes harnessed the power of thought to become a business partner of the great Thomas Edison, who two of the chief characteristics of Barnes' thought were that is definite and purposeful. He wanted to work with Edison, not for him. Two difficulties stood in Barnes's way. He did not know Mr. Edison and did not have the means to travel to Orange, New Jersey to meet him. These difficulties were sufficient to have discouraged the majority of people, but his was no ordinary thought. It was coupled with persistence and burning desire. Barnes was so determined to find a way to achieve his goal that he finally decided to travel by blind baggage via freight train. Okay. He presented himself at Mr. Edison's laboratory and announced that he had come to go into business with the inventor. In speaking of the first meeting between Barnes and Edison years later, Mr. Edison said, "He stood there before me looking like an ordinary tramp, but there was something in the expression of his face which conveyed the impression that he was determined to get what he had come after. I had learned from years of experience with men that when a man really desires a thing, desires a thing so deeply that he is willing to stake his entire future on a single turn of the wheel in order to get it, he is sure to win. I gave him the opportunity he asked for because I saw he had made up his mind to stand by until he succeeded. Subsequently, events proved that no mistakes was made. Just what young Barnes said to Mr. Edison on the occasion was far less important than what he thought. Edison himself said no. It could not have been young man's appearance that got him his start in the Edison office, for that was definitely against him. It was what he thought that counted. It wasn't the Barnes's appearance that got him his start in Edison's office. It was what he thought that counted. Barnes did not get his partnership with Edison immediately. He did get a chance to work in the Edison's office at a very nominal wage, doing work that was unimportant to Edison but most important to Barnes because it gave him an opportunity to prove himself. Months went by, apparently nothing happened to bring the coveted goal, strongly desired. Had set up in his mind as definite major purpose, but something important was happening in Barnes' mind. He was constantly intensifying his desire to become the business associate of Edison. Psychologists have correctly said when one is truly ready for a thing, it puts it in appearance. Barnes was ready for a business association with Edison. Moreover, he was determined to remain ready until he got that what he was seeking. He did not stay to himself. He did not say to himself, ah, well, what's the use? I guess I'll change my mind and try my salesman's job. But he did say, I came here to go into business with Edison and I'll accomplish this end if it takes the remainder of my life. He meant it. What a different story people would have to tell, only they would adopt a definite purpose and stand by that purpose until it had time to become an all consuming obsession. When one is truly ready for a thing, it puts in its appearance. Maybe young Barnes did not know it at that time, but his bulldog determination, his persistence pursuing a single desire was destined to mow down all opposition and bring him the opportunity he was seeking. Kill by gunshot. To was destined to kill all opposition and bring him the opportunity he was seeking. When the opportunity came, it appeared in the different form and form from a different direction that Barnes had expected. That is one of the tricks of opportunity. It has a sly habit of slipping it by the back door, and often it comes disguised in the form of misfortune or temporary defeat. Perhaps this is why so many fail to recognize opportunity. Mr. Edison had just perfected a new office device known as the time as the Edison dictating machine, later called the Ideophone. His salespeople were not enthusiastic over the machine. They did not believe it could be sold without great effort. Barnes saw his opportunity to had crawled in quietly hidden in a queer looking machine that interested no one but Barnes and the inventor. Barnes knew definite purpose fueled by persistence and burning desire that he could sell the edition dictating machine. He suggested this to Edison and promptly got his chance. He did sell the machine. In fact, he sold it so successfully that Edison gave him a contract to distribute and market all over the nation. Out of the business association grew the slogan made by Edison and installed by Barnes. Out of this business alliance, Barnes made himself wealthy. But he accomplished something infinitely greater. He proved that one really may think and grow rich. Barnes literally thought himself into a partnership with the great Edison. He thought himself into fortune. He had nothing to start with, no money or influence, and little education, but he did have initiative, faith, and will to win. He knew what he wanted and was determined to stand by desire until he realized it. With these intangible forces, he made himself number one man and with the greatest inventor who ever lived. Barnes literally thought himself into a partnership with the great Edison. Now let us look at a different situation and study a man who had plenty of intangible evidences of riches but lost it because he stopped 3 feet short of his goal, quitting 3 feet from gold. One of the most common causes of failure is the habit of quitting when one is overtaken by temporary defeat. Every person is guilty of this mistake at one time or another. This is a story of how thought without persistence can lead to failure. R.U. Darby, who later became one of the most successful insurance salesmen in the country, tells the story of his uncle who was caught by the gold fever in the gold rush days and went west to dig and grow rich. He had never heard to more gold has been mined from the brains of men that has ever been taken from the earth. He staked a claim and went to work with pick and shovel. His thought was certainly definite, purposeful, and driven by a burning desire, a lust for gold. Thought without persistence often leads to failure. Thought without persistence. If you want, then you should be persistent as well if you want to succeed. After weeks of labor, he was rewarded by the discovery of the shining ore. He needed machinery to bring the ore to the surface. Quietly, he covered up the mine, retraced his footsteps to his home in Williamsburg, Maryland, and told his relative and a few neighbors of the strike. They got together money for needed machinery and had it shipped. The uncle and Darby went back to work that mine. The first car of ore was mined and shipped to a smelter. The returns proved they had one of the richest mines in Colorado. A few more cars of what ore would clear the debts. Cars of that ore would clear the debts. Then would come the big killing in profits. Down went the drills, up went the hopes of Darby and his uncle. Then something happened. The vein of gold ore disappeared. They had come to the end of the rainbow and the pot of gold was nowhere to be found. They drilled on desperately, trying to pick up the vein, all no to avail. Ineffective. Okay. Avail means no avail, not available. Basically. Finally, they decided to quit. They sold the machinery to a junk man for a few $100 and took the train back home. Some junk men are dumb, but not this one. He called it a mining engineer to look at the time mine and do a little calculating. The engineer advised that the project had failed because the owners were unfamiliar with the fault lines. His calculation showed that the vein would be found just 3 feet from where the Darbys had stopped drilling. That is exactly where it was found. The junk man took millions of dollars in ore from the mine because he knew enough to seek expert counsel before giving up. The junk man had no specialized knowledge about fault lines, but he had the wisdom to hire someone who did. See steps 15 for more about how to impress harness the power of specialized knowledge when you are not in possession of it yourself. Basically, look forward, look afterward. Mr. Darby recovered his loss many times over when he made the discovery that desire can be transmuted into gold. Impressive. Long afterward, Mr. Darby recouped his loss many times over when he made the discovery that desire can be transmuted into gold. The discovery came after he went into the business of selling life insurance. Remembering that he lost a huge fortune because he had stopped 3 feet from gold, Darby profited by experience in his chosen work by the simple method of saying to himself, I stopped 3 feet from gold, but I will never stop because men say no when I ask them to buy insurance. He owes his stick to itiveness to the lesson he learned from quitting short of achieving his goal in the gold mining business. Before success comes to most people, they are sure to meet with much temporary defeat and perhaps some failure. When faced with defeat, the easiest and most logical thing to do is to quit. Persistence is the key to succeeding in the face of adversity. More than 500 of the most successful people in this country had ever known claim that their greatest success came just one step beyond the point at which defeat had overtaken him. Failure is a trickster with a keen sense of irony and cunning. It takes great delight in tripping one when success is almost within reach. Tripping one when success is almost within reach. Persistence is key in foiling failure. Persistence is key in foiling failure, as our next story demonstrates. A 50-cent lesson in persistence. Shortly after Mr. Darby received his degree from the University of Hard Knocks and learned the painful lesson of persistence, he had the good fortune to be present on an occasion that proved to him that no does that necessarily means no. Cunning. Cunning. Degree from the University of Hard Knocks and learned the painful lesson of persistence. He had the good fortune to be present on an occasion that proved him to do. No does not necessarily means no. One afternoon, he was helping his uncle grind wheat in a old-fashioned mill. The uncle operated a large farm on which the number of sharecrop farmers lived. Quietly, the door was opened and a small child, the daughter of a tenant, walked in and took her place near the door. The uncle looked up, saw the child, and barked at her roughly. "What do you want?" Meekly, the child replied, "My mammy says send her 50 cents. I'll not do it," the uncle retorted. "Now you run on home." "Yes, sir," the child replied, but she did not move. The uncle went ahead of with his work, so busily engaged that he did not pay enough attention to the child to observe that she did not leave. When he looked up and saw her still standing, he yelled at her, "I told you to go on home. Now go, or I will take a switch to you." The little girl said, "Yes, sir," but she did not budge an inch. The uncle dropped a sack of grain he was about to pour into the mill hopper, picked up a barrel stave, and started toward the child with an expression of his face that indicated trouble. Darby held his breath. He was certain that he was about to witness a murder. He knew his uncle had a fierce temper, very strong temper. When the uncle reached the spot where the child was standing, she quickly stepped forward one step, looking up into the eyes, and screamed at the top of her shrill voice, "My mammy's gotta have that 50 cents." The uncle stopped, looked at her for a minute, then slowly laid the barrel stab on the floor, put his hand into the floor, took out half a dollar, and gave it to her. The child took the money and slowly backed toward the door, never taking her eyes off the man whom she just had conquered. After she had gone, the uncle sat down on a box and looked out a window into space for more than 10 minutes. He was pondering. Pondering means thinking. With awe. Awe means fear and respect. Over the whipping he had just taken. Mr. Darby too was doing some thinking. That was the first time in all his experience that he had seen a child of a sharecropper deliberately master an adult authority figure. How did she do it? What happened on to this uncle that caused him to lose his fierceness and become as docile as a lamb, quiet and easy to control? What strange power did this child use that made her master over her superior? These and other similar questions flashed into Darby's mind, but he did not find the answer until years later. When he told me the story, strangely, the story of this unusual experience was told me to me in the old mill on the very spot where uncle took his whipping. As we stood there in that musty old mill, Master Darby repeated the story of the unusual conquest and the finished by asking, "What can you make of it? What strange power did that child use that so completely whipped my uncle?" After I described to Mr. Darby the power unwittingly used by the little child, the power of thought, as described at the beginning of this chapter, he quickly retraced his 30 years of experience as a life insurance salesman and frankly acknowledged that his success in the field was due, in no small degree, to the lesson he had learned from the child. Mr. Darby pointed out, every time a prospect tried to bow me out, I saw that child standing there in the old mill, her big eyes glaring in defiance. And I said to myself, I have got to make this sale. I better portion of all sales I have made were made after people had said no. He recalled to the mistake he and his uncle made stopping only 3 feet from gold. But he said that experience was blessing in disguise. It taught me to keep on keeping on, no matter how hard the going may be. A lesson needed to learn before I could succeed in anything. Darby owes to these two experiences his ability to sell more than $1 million of life insurance every year. Henry Ford versus his V8 engine. Reluctant. When Ford decided to produce his own now famous V8 motor, he chose to build an engine with an eight entire eight cylinders. Produce it anyway. But they replied, it is impossible. Go ahead, Ford commanded, and stay on the job until you succeed, no matter how much time is required. The engineers went ahead. There was nothing else for them to do. If they were to remain on the Ford staff, 6 months went by and nothing happened. Another 6 months passed and still nothing. The engineers tried every conceivable plan to carry out the orders, but the thing seemed out of the question, impossible. At the end of the year, Ford checked with. They informed him that they had found no way to carry out this. Go right ahead, said Ford. I want it and I'll have it. They will. They went ahead, and then it by a stroke of magic, the secret was discovered. The Ford determination had won once more. Henry Ford became a success because he understood and applied the principles of success. One of these is desire, knowing what one wanted. The other is persistence, perceiving until the object of desire. The principle of success, one of these is desire, knowing what one wanted. The other is persistence, perceiving until the object of desire was obtained. Remember this Ford story as you read because it reveals the secret, the principles by which any object of desire is obtained. From milkshakes to McDonald's with Ray Kroc. Ray Kroc is a good example of another person who riches originated with a thought. Kroc was a salesman of milkshake mixes. Most of his customers, restaurants and diners, purchased one of two units. When he received an order for 8 mixes from a small food outlet in San Bernardino, California, he decided to visit them and see how they could sell so many shakes. It was the busiest restaurant he had ever seen. The brothers offered a very limited menu: hamburgers, cheeseburgers, French fries, shakes, and soft drinks, all at the lowest price in the area. Kroc saw an opportunity. It could open a chain of these restaurants, each as productive and profitable as this. Money would flow in. He proposed the idea to McDonald brothers, who teamed up the Croc's to implement it. Within a few years, McDonald not only became the top selling food outlet in the country, but launched the fast food industry. Kroc later bought out the McDonald's brother and expanded his business into international phenomenon, making him one of the richest men of the country of his time. McDonald's started with the thought to offer a limited menu at the lowest price in the area. It grew into a worldwide billion-dollar fast food franchise from another thought to create a chain of these fast food restaurants, but both thoughts were intangibles that ultimately produced tangible wealth. About this book, most people who sincerely desire to improve themselves and their station in life crave to know the secret to how people become wealthy. Many wealthy people have learned these important life lessons on their own, just as Darby did by observing his and his uncle's mistake of stopping 3 feet short of gold from the 50 cents lesson in persistence. Few others, however, have the good fortune of observing the such valuable life lessons or other ability to extract insights from such lessons. I wrote this book to make the secret more accessible to work more people. Riches begin with a state of mind with definiteness क्या बोलेंगे definite definiteness. Riches begin with a state of mind with definiteness of purpose with little or no hard work. I spent 25 years in research, interviewing more than 500 wealthy individuals and analyzing more than 25,000 people who failed at their efforts to become rich because I too wanted to know how wealthy people became rich. Without that research, this book could not have been written. As we proceed, remember these riches begin with a state of mind with definiteness of purpose with little or no hard work. In this book, you learn how to acquire that state of mind which will attract riches. When you begin to think and grow rich, you soon discover the following. When riches begin to come, they come so quickly. When wealth begin to come, they come so quickly in such a great abundance that one wonders where they have been hiding during all those lean years. This is an astounding statement, that all the more so when we take into consideration the popular misconception that riches come only to those who work hard and long. Who work hard and long. Alright. You may see your best friend and your greatest enemy by stepping in front of your memory. You are your best friend and your greatest enemy. Know and improve yourself. Step. आज के लिए दोस्तों इतना ही. हम कल शुरू करेंगे वापस से चैप्टर 2.